Dave, welcome back to the compound.
Yes, indeed. It's always lovely to be here, man.
It's I can't stop smiling because it's so. I'm gonna ask you the first question I ask everybody, and then I'll go into the history before we start the interview. But
Yep.
You've been to the Bronx, you've been
Yeah.
to the gallery, you've been to the like production compound. Now we're in Red Hook, Brooklyn. What do you think about it when you see the new compound, the new compound art gallery, and the evolution of it?
I feel like it's Black excellence and it's Black genius. That's how I feel, because it's like being able to be homies with somebody and understanding their dreams and their visions for things and all that. You could be on the block and it'll be like somebody that you would never think is like artistic, but they know how to draw on the block, but they the wildest dude, but they know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they got like some ill ass talent, and knowing you for all these years as a marketer, to understand your creative vision though, gives me more insight on what made you successful as a marketer, because you were thinking so different than everyone else, and this shows how different you think. And it's an honor to have seen the evolution of your thoughts and creativity and your network, because what you do is you end up bringing that out of others, and it's so inspiring, man. It's like I was telling you before we started, like, it's one thing to be on these production sets, but then it's another thing to own them.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing,
level. Yeah.
And the sauce is different when we own it. You know what I'm saying? Like, usually you got to go ask for the kind of spice you need to make the sauce work when somebody else got it. But when you got it, it's like, I know what sauce I need. I don't got to ask nobody. I could grow it.
I could do it
myself. And that's what this does to me. It makes me, it's funny because this time right now, I know we might even touch on it, but this time right now for me is that, like, I'm looking to go independent. You know what I'm saying? So to be able to have my own company, Daylight Media, that I've had for many years, but to go and double down on it now that I'm 50 and I have my little heart scare and all that stuff, I'm like, yo, there's no better time than now to go after what I've always wanted to go after. And you do that times. You know what I'm saying? So it's beautiful to see, man. That's my answer for that.
Wow. It's so much emotion in that answer. I mean,
it is.
I knew, two stories before we even start.
Yeah.
One was you actually 15, 20 years maybe thinking of a video game show.
Remember that.
Before.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think people was playing online then.
No, man.
And that just shows me, that was your mind thinking of entrepreneurship
back then.
During then.
Mm-hmm.
So
we got one. We got
a trailer.
We got a trailer. I appreciate you, bro, for that.
We had a trailer.
We had a trailer
and a pilot.
Yep.
I think the second part was just always remember, man, the day I met you. It was like, you was like, yo, I knew your voice for years, man, before I got to meet you. And I was like, and you was like, yo, and I heard them A1 mixtapes and I heard your voice. And then to see the person and the person connects and matches, if it came together, and I was like, wow, this dude, when people know you before they know you.
Yep.
And then, the magic of what you was doing at that time and then what it was like, nah, this is a brother that I always needed in my life, wanted to know, but now we finally met, and like we were both. I think that was 97, like in the 97,
90s.
Yeah, and it was the journey of was like, okay, we were both launching our careers at the same time.
Yeah, it was crazy because to know you from the group.
Oh wow, the Deadly Snakes group.
Deadly Snakes
on Tommy Boy Records. I forgot about that.
Yes, to know you from that, and then to realize when I put two and two together, like, wait a minute, that's dude from that. And we had put y'all in Double XL back then.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot.
Yeah, see, look, wow, that's the
other side of it.
Yeah. And then I was like, yo, this dude is serious, man. Like, you made the jump from that
to
into, you know what I'm
basketball
saying?
and sports
Yeah,
and
man.
hip
And
hop. Yeah.
the funny thing about your voice was the fact that it was so synonymous with streetball culture and how that was blossoming and taking over. That was special times for me because whenever the new ones would come out, I would get it, go to the crib, and I got little cousins that are like my brothers, but all my cousins, my whole house is basketball. Everybody in the crib is basketball. There's no
You
way
can't get away from
you can't
basketball.
get away from it in our crib. You know, my uncle made that a thing. You know, it's
Mandatory.
mandatory. You got to get outside and go play ball. You had to. It was like, what you doing, man? You ain't playing ball today? Like, yo, come on, come on, come on. I made some of my best friends because of him, because he would make us go outside and play ball. And they used to have like the makeshift basketball thing, or we'll go to PS9. You know what I'm saying? But I say all that to say, those videos and your voice was synonymous with me spending time with my family too. You know what I'm saying? So it was one of those things where we all got together to look at something like that. And that's family time.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't even think you realize, like, when people go back to those times, they looking at it with the people they love the most, probably. You know what I'm saying? So you're a cultural insignia, bro.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Thank you, man.
For real, for real.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
All right, let's get it started
Let's
now.
get it. Let's get it.
So, Dave, man, Compound Conversation is basically me and humans, friends, homies, whatever. Just, always say that people in media, we start from the right now moment, the hot topic, but I kind of just want to help my friends tell their backstory.
Yes,
Because,
indeed.
it's so many chapters a day, it's so many moments a day. And, like, you never know how you inspire people. It might be the career, it might be the family, it might be the person. So, I even learn a lot when I'm doing these conversations. So let's start from the beginning.
Let's do it.
Days from Brooklyn. I think everybody knows that.
I'm a Brooklyn kid all the way.
But what was day one for you? Is it mom? Was it dad? Is it sisters? Is it cousins?
Yeah.
Like, what was the world of Dave from the start, and where did it start in Brooklyn?
Right there, it was kind of split, because when I think when I was like when I was turning 1 or turning 2, my mom and my dad split up. They were young parents, 19 and 20. My dad was still in college. My mom was in college. And my dad is from Brevoort Projects in Bed-Stuy. Same projects as Fab. And then my mom is from Crown Heights, not too far, like literally around the corner from the Brooklyn Museum. Prospect Heights, Crown Heights. And that's like, my ground zeros. On the weekends, I'm in Brevoort Projects. I'm learning project life. And then during the week, I'm running up and down the blocks around the way. And my mom married my stepdad when I was 11, and he was in the Air Force. So we moved to Tokyo, Japan, which was so crazy. Being from Brooklyn and coming up like that to go to another country that's so far advanced in culture and spiritual alignment and just creative energy. That alone just shifted my whole thing, because in Brooklyn, it was all about hip hop growing up for me, and my uncles being DJs, and coming up, I'm breakdancing, I'm beatboxing, I'm learning graffiti. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was my life. And then to go to Japan and try to carry that on and try to infuse others with what I was holding on to myself. And we didn't have the internet. We didn't have any phones or anything like that. So I'm getting a lot of those things from my uncles and my cousins sending me letters and VHS tapes. That's how I was seeing everything. You know what I mean? And I think when you love something like hip hop the way that I have, and you can't get to it the way that you want to, you double down on it. You know what I'm saying? So I doubled down on it out there. And when I got back to the States, we moved to New Mexico. We was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the place where Bugs Bunny go, and he be getting low. He's like, I made a wrong turn
with
to
the
Albuquerque.
TNT and everything.
Yeah, it's crazy. But what Albuquerque taught me was the West Coast lifestyle. Unfortunately, it was crazy, but fortunately, unfortunately, my school was like a Crip school, and I didn't know anything about Bloods or Crips and all that stuff coming back to the States. And I ended up wearing I'm a St. John's Redmond fan. Back then, there was the Redmond. I wore all Redmond shit one day to school.
He was Reggie Noble out here.
I was looking crazy. I was St. John's out all the way down, and I had the troops, the red and white troops with the elephant print. And I went to school, and these dudes was like, "Nah, but you can't. No." They was like, I was so egregious. They knew something was different about. Like, there's no way.
They're like, "Yo, you know you bugging." You like, "Nah,
I don't." But we know you are. But you are. You know what I'm saying? And they ended up becoming like my really good friends or whatever. But they definitely gave me a pass. And I bring that up because I was learning what the culture had turned into while I was away. And it taught me like, oh, it's different. This has an edge to it that it didn't when you first got into it. It has a different kind of edge. And also living out there taught me to open my ears up to different type of hip hop. You know, out there they was playing like E40, Too Short,
MC8.
MC8, and a lot of like Florida bass, because out there they love their cars that have those big woofers and everything. So I had to become accustomed to
that lifestyle.
You know what I'm saying? And when I was there for like a year and a half. We moved back to Brooklyn my sophomore year in high school, and that changed everything. Once I got back to Brooklyn, I was like, oh, I'm going everywhere. I'm going everywhere. I want to absorb this. I'm at Rock Steady, you know, they celebrations up in the park. I'm at Katona. I'm
Jones Beach.
I'm everywhere. And my boys on the block used to be like, they didn't like to leave Brooklyn, but mad shit was happening in the city. Mad shit was happening everywhere. So then once they realized like I didn't care if I had to go by myself, they was like, we can't just be letting you go by yourself and shit. So they started coming with me and seeing like, all right, day is different. And that's like kind of like the foundation of everything that I'm doing now.
So I guess, man, I didn't know you was that well traveled, you know, like not well versed, but well traveled from like New Mexico to Japan. And, you know, I think you know, MOP, Mose, Quali, y'all, rest in peace, Clark Kent, y'all so Brooklyn. You meet a Brooklyn person, you think they never leave Brooklyn.
They never left.
Like, it just seemed like y'all stay in Brooklyn. Y'all don't go down south to see your family. Everybody gotta come to Brooklyn. So I never even knew that. So, because to me, you're like, you know, there's ghostwriters in music, but you're like the ghostwriter of the culture to me.
I appreciate
like
that.
You're like the Professor X Pen
I'll take it.
Of the culture.
I'll take it.
And now it's kind of making sense, because one of the things as I'm hearing the story, it's like being that traveling that young at the age, seeing cultures here, you know, we didn't see West Coast culture until maybe Boys in the Hood,
right?
Minister Society.
Yeah,
that's our visual of, you know, we B Street, Wild Style, Breaking. You traveling to these places overseas, and the reason I'm saying the pen of the culture, when did the research game, the knowledge, the reading, like the writing, because this had to all take a shape during this, like, was it journals, was it diaries, or was it the Jay-Z world of just putting this all in my mind?
Oh man.
And then I'm gonna come back later and put this in a pen game.
I think it started heavily before we left for Japan, because, you know, my uncles were DJs, so every Friday was like Christmas, because he would come in with like these 12 inches and be like, all right, it was always like, all right, what's going to be this magical sound that he puts on the turntable today? You know, on Fridays, I would definitely just be in his room waiting for him. You know what I'm saying? Those are my days where I would watch TV in his room. I wouldn't watch it in the living room in my grandmother's crib. I would watch TV in his room because I didn't want to miss him coming in because he used to come in and play the 12 inches before he would go out to a party. He would DJ real quick, maybe do a quick set, and I wanted to be there for it. So it started with that. And then when we left, I didn't have that. So they would make me tapes. They would make me Red Alert tapes, Mr. Magic tapes. They'll make me Video Music Box tapes, and that's how I was absorbing the culture. But then I started getting into comic books heavy in Japan. Back then in 86 to 89, it was some of the best manga that you could ever, like you got the Ghost in the Shell shirt on now.
It's a fact.
Like my cousin was like, he was on Akira back then.
Yeah, me too.
You know what I'm saying?
Ninja
like
Scroll,
in the 80s. Yeah. And he,
Fist of the North Star.
the whole bit, like my cousin Ramsey, I got to give it to him. And he's only 6 months older than me. He was the one that was like super advanced, and he knew everything about Japan before I even left. He was telling me what I had to look out for. And he would write me all the time. I would send him stuff, and he would send me stuff. But comic books, like opening up my mind, like X-Men, of course, Fantastic Four, all of those, Spider-Man, everything. What it would do is it would give me this world that I could jump into, especially Marvel. And then I was looking at rappers in the same way. So I'm listening to hip hop, getting these comic books. I started reading, and then I was just always into books. My whole thing was like different types of books and stuff like that. And I don't know when the bug really hit me, but I do remember when it changed for me. I had come back to Brooklyn. I was going to Sarah J. Hill High School, right down the block from Barclays. And my English teacher pulled me to the side and was like, yo, you're special with this. You should really cultivate this. And just that little push made me feel like, oh, I could do this. Because what he did was he made us read The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And we would have to read it and break down each chapter. And we would break down the chapter. And I wrote my reviews like they were music reviews from the Source vibe. I structured it like that because I was heavy Source. The Source magazine, heavy.
That was it.
My whole room
was the covers.
All the covers. Right On magazine back when I was in Japan.
Word Up,
and Black Beat and all of that. Those are my things. But so I structured my stuff like that. And I guess he was wondering, like, where this kid getting this skill for? I was mimicking what I read. So I was able to, jump ahead a little bit because of those magazines. And I feel as though once he told me that, I was like, I could do that then. If he's feeling like that, I could do that. And that's what got me into really doing it.
What was the next thing? Because I know, like, you like, yo, okay, I got a style. I know my thing is different, but what was the next part of the journey? Like, now I need to take this. Was it, I'm gonna just start writing articles on my own, or you like, I want to go get it. I want to write for Source and Five.
Yeah.
What was that next chapter?
So after high school, I went to Baruch College in the city, and while I was there, I was working at the New York Public Library, and I was in a special division called Reading and Writing for illiterate adults. So my division, I was in Seward Park, all the way down in the LES on East Broadway. And what I would do was I would teach illiterate adults how to use computers and how to learn how to write sentences. You would be blown away by the everyday New Yorkers that couldn't do that. And I'm not talking about people that were like immigrants or whatever. I'm talking about everyday New Yorkers would come in, and after years and years and years of being embarrassed about not being able to write or read, these are grandparents that were coming in, raised whole families, sent their kids to school, but couldn't read or write, but just wanted to be able to read to their grandkids. Like, that was like one of the number one things that I would have to deal with, is like a grandfather or a grandmother coming in, late 50s, early 60s, like my grandchild wants me to read to them at night, and I can't. And I come up with ways to not have them ask me, and it hurts, and I want to be able to do it. And I'm tasked with helping them get to that point. And after getting them to that point and seeing the joy on their face and them coming back saying like, yo, I read Little Lamb to them, or I read Dr. Seuss, or I read da da da. It was the best feeling in the world, man. I mean, like truly the best feeling in the world. There was one gentleman, he was like 70 something years old, war veteran, and all he wanted to do was read to his grandchild. And he was able to do it after a few months, and I was just amazed by him. And this gentleman was like, yo, you always come in here with these magazines. You always in here with these, because sometimes I would use like the source and stuff like that to help them. He was like, you always come in here with these magazines, and you always making us do all this stuff. And you talk about how you want to be in these magazines. Why your name not in these magazines? And I was like, what you mean? He was like, you always talking about us going for what we need to go for, and the dreams and stuff like that, and work hard, and you do that. But I want to see your name in here. Where's your name in here? You love this so much. Where's your name? You got to do this. That's what you got to do. He's pointing at me and shit, and I'm like he's beating me up about not being in the source or not being in Vibe. And I was like, damn, he's right. He was like, if I had your skills to do that, I would be all over this thing. He was like, I would be now that he got like a little bit, he's feeling himself. And he was like, I would be all over this if I had your skills.
That remind me, it sounded like the scene from Malcolm X with Brother Bane.
Bam.
Ran up on Malcolm, was like, look, man.
You that guy. Like,
you that guy, and you could take it there. So
yeah, so
wow.
that inspired me to even, I remember being in school still, and Vibe was like one of the only publications that had a website. And I was in the computer lab, and I went to their website just to see what they had new up. And they had like a little floating little cloud or something on the site. And it was like interns needed, some shit like that. And I clicked it, and they gave you a number to call. And I had like 25 cents on me. I ran over to the payphone that was right over on the same floor, and I called the number, and this dude picked up, my man Greg Bishop. He ended up becoming de Blasio's small business comptroller for New York. And he called me. He picked up when I called and was like, yo, what's up? I was like, hey, I just saw the internship thing on Vibe. He was like, oh, okay. Why don't you come through? It's going to be 300 people here. And I was like, damn. I was like, for how many slots? He's like, one. I was like, what? 300 people for one intern slot? He was like, yeah. He was like, yo, you could be here Saturday? I was like, yeah, I could be here Saturday. He was like, all right, meet me here at 10 o'clock. Gave me the address, whatever. So it was like my birthday weekend. So I end up, my grandmother gave me some money, get to the city. I come out, and it was on 31st in Lexington. That's when it was at 205 Lex. I get in, and the security guard is there. He looking at me like, the hell? I was like, hey, I'm here. You know, I know a bunch of people supposed to be here for the intern thing. He was like, what, for Vibe? I was like, yeah, Vibe. He was like, yeah, nobody be here on the weekends. Ain't nobody here. I was like, nah, I talked to the dude. He was like, nobody's here. Like, so I walk out the door, and I'm like, yo, did this dude play me? Was that a real number? But I had the number in my beeper. I kept it in my beeper. So I was like, let me call this number again. So boom, I go to a corner phone, payphone. That payphone is gone now. I used to always look at that payphone when I used to pass it. I was like, that shit changed my life. But they took it away now. Now it's a little bike rack. But anyway, I went to the corner, called from the payphone, and dude picked up. He was like, yo, He's like, Greg. I was like, yo, man, like you told me to be here at 10. They telling me nobody there. He was like, nah, who told you? I was like, the security. He was like, oh, nah. He was like, nah, I just got here. He was like, where you at? I'm like, I'm at the corner. I'm at the corner of the building. He's like, what corner? I was like, the corner of the building. He looks out the window. He's like, you see me? And he was waving out the window on the second floor. And I was like, yo, I see you. He was like, all right, come up. I was like, all right, bet. I hung up the phone. Mind you, I wasn't about to call. I was about to just jump on the train and go back
home. Yeah.
But I didn't want to go back on the block.
Wow.
The only reason why I called is because I didn't want to go back. I was like, damn, I don't want to go back on the block. I done told people I was coming to this shit. I'll be back on the block like,
well, you lying.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't want to go back on the block. That was the reason why I called. So anyway, I go back into the building, security. I was like, yo, he said he here. He was like, yeah, when you left, he came in. I was like, whatever, man. He was an asshole. So I get upstairs. I'm expecting like the 300 people still. I get up there, I don't hear nothing. I'm in vibe. I'm seeing all the covers and Quincy Jones shit, and they got the chandelier and everything. I'm like, my favorite writer at the time was Kevin Powell. And I'm just like, yo, I get to see like where he work and shit. I'm just looking around. And dude was like, yeah, come on in. I was like, yo, where all the people at? He was like, oh man, I was just playing. I was like, what? I was like, ain't no 300 people for one slide. He was like, hell nah. He was like, I just ain't want nobody that was going to be scared. He was like, I knew if you was scared, you wasn't going to come. He was like, that's how I weed everybody out.
That's fire, though.
You know what I'm saying? So that taught me show up.
Never know what's going to happen.
Never know what's going to happen. And I wasn't like necessarily scared about the 300. I was just like, that's a lot of motherfuckers for one slot that's going to be told no because I'm getting it. I had like the confidence that I had a shot. Even if it was 300 people, I was delusional enough to feel like I just got to be there because it's me. I know more about this magazine than anybody. I'll go up against anybody. If it had to be like a trivia thing or whatever, that's how I felt. And I'm just so proud of me for showing up and not being scared and meeting the moment. And that taught me for the rest of my career to show up when I feel like, damn, the odds are against me. You know what I'm saying? So
crazy.
That started my career. That same day, he was like, yo, organize those photos over there. And the photos was like Lauryn Hill, Method Man, Redman. It was like a bunch of artists that I love. So I had to organize all those joints.
Wow.
And that's how I started.
So this is crazy. Another one, before we get back to your journey, my career, my first record label, my first shot was through the phone book, just like yours. So I was living in Philly at the time.
Yeah.
And, in Philly, you only get the Philadelphia yellow pages and the white pages come to your crib.
Yep. The big joints used to come. Yep.
I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 20th and Broadway.
Wow.
Phone book. On the chain was the yellow pages and the white pages.
Yep.
I stole both of them.
Because they used to have them with the payphones.
With the payphone.
Yeah, they used to have them.
I took both of them. Went back to Philly on Peter Pan.
Wow.
But now I got every record label.
That's crazy.
And so I met in London Max Nichols, which was an A&R. I went on the road with Prince Paul and I was DJing. And he was like, it was at the Jazz Cafe in London.
Wow.
That's where I DJ'd. And I remember he was there. And he was like, hey, I'm an A&R at Tommy Boy Records, man. And he didn't give me a card or nothing. And I was like, damn, how am I ever going to find this guy? Came to New York, stole both of his phone books. And I remember seeing Tommy Boy Records.
And it was in there.
And that's how I got the phone number. But that was also how I learned, like, oh, this is where G Street's at. This is where Jive was at. Because I didn't know, living in Philly at the time, like,
where they were.
But I always heard the stories like, yo, we just stand in front of the label and wait until the A&Rs and managers come out and we roll up on them. But I was like, oh, and then I called Tommy Boy. And I was like, yo, is Max Nichols there? And he was like, please hold. And I was like, it worked. And that's literally Now every year, because remember they changed the phone.
Yeah.
Every year I was stealing the phone books from New York just to go back to build my little card library. Like, okay,
Yep.
oh, this is what G Street said. This is what Jive. Oh, this is what Priority at. But it's funny that the phone, and I used to look at that phone booth like, yo, that was
the one.
That was the one that changed my whole life.
Yes, man. Yes. I'm so tight that they got rid of it, but that's what we had to do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what we had to do. And we had to use that as our catalyst to go forward, man. It's crazy.
So this is off topic of your journey, but on topic of your style and career. So, you know, I look at, we hear this saying the top 5 dead or alive, right?
Yeah.
So in journalists and cultural ghost people, you are in my top 5. You know?
Thank you, fam.
Thank you. And you being an avid listener and a studier of the craft and all the Brooklyn MCs, which I mean, you know, to me, 2, which is Jay and Big and Brooklyn, and then you got Quali, you got Mos. It's just so many.
So many.
Did you ever think that your pen, because to me, your pen is like Jay pen in what you do. It's Quali pen. It's Clark Kent and DJing. It's producers. I don't know if you ever even looked at your pen and compared it to the greats, but I know you from so much. You know these verses. You know these metaphors. You know the flows, the styles. Did you ever look at how you write as equivalent to the bars of writing stories? Because you know, some of the articles you wrote and some of the things, and being even interviewed by you for decades now, I'm like, these are craftsmanship bars in the way you put things together. But was listening to the great MCs in hip hop culture almost a part of your craft of how you write?
Definitely, man. If we're you know, critiquing them and analyzing them in the way that we're supposed to, or at least that I grew up like how you're supposed to, you want to strive for their greatness. I want my review of their album or my and I don't know, my analysis to be on par with their greatness. That was like one of the things that I always wanted to do. And when I first started, I can't even front. Like, it was my man, Scoop Jackson, you know, Slam Magazine, great, you know, sports.
Culture.
Great writer. I used to use his style. He had like this stop and go style. He used a lot of periods. Like, he would say a statement, period. And I incorporated that into my style. But then I was like, once I got in it a little bit more, my name was starting to pop. I was like, I need my own style. And I think my style is like a little bit more flowy descriptive without the stops.
Yeah.
Like I could keep.
You got like a run on style.
I got the run on, like here's the scene. Here's the scene. I'm trying to paint the fucking scene.
Yeah.
Here it go. And that was my thing. And I feel like, you know, people started to gravitate towards my style, especially in those early XXL days, because that's where I cultivated it. And then that led to me starting King. And my whole King is my style. That magazine itself is my style on display. And not just my style, now I'm bringing my friends with me. That's nice. So I always felt like I was like, I don't know, Fat Joe or Jay or whatever. When you start a Terror Squad or a Rockefeller or whatever, you got your Bleaks, you got your Beans, you got, you know, you got your puns and all that. And I'm unleashing, like, I'm nice, but my people's nice too.
This the Daylight Avengers.
Here we go. This is a squad. And that's what I love about my team, man. Like, we did that for so long. And it took us time to get there. And then when I started the mag, that was like, boom. I'm here and I got a crew.
King Magazine, besides your style, man, you was the Black Hugh Hefner for us. You put our women on the cover tastefully.
Yes, indeed.
Healthy, plus size.
Yes.
Slim, all of them. I mean, just the covers on the table. It goes through so many more. But what was crazy for me, man, I remember coming to Harrison the first time I met you, I think. You really was the Professor X of bringing your team, but you was a beacon in there. It was, it was more than King, King and Rides and Slam and Antenna and, but even I think it was like Home and Garden was in there, Guns and Ammo was
Ammo.
Guns and I looked at you like, okay, he might be writing for them, but everybody in this building is touching the sauce.
Yeah,
like
they all rock with me. I'm talking like all the guitar mag.
Yeah, everything.
Everybody rock with me, and I attribute that to my time in Japan and in Mexico, being able to tap into so-called white culture, or like being able to understand where they're coming from too. And I think that was their first time dealing with someone from urban culture being cool with them, because most people that came up there wasn't messing with them like that.
Being able to adapt with all types of humans.
Yeah, man.
It's very rare. It's rare though.
It's super rare. And Harris Publications did over 170 different type of publications. They had Dog News. And when I tell you, Dog News was a killer, every fucking week they put that big ass magazine out, and they were killers.
Wow.
On the newsstand, man. They were and killers are like magazines that do over 40% sell through rate every month. That's like almost that's you rocking. You gonna go every month.
Wow.
Right? But then you gotta also put that in perspective. Maxim at its height was doing 70%, which is like
unheard of.
That's unheard of, bro. Like they was doing shit that you couldn't even. They were selling. It was funny. I remember Greg Gutfeld, who was the editor-in-chief of Stuff, and which was connected to Maxim. He was talking about like selling a stadium worth of, what is it, Michigan Wolverines? Like a stadium worth every few hours or something like that. It was like, what the hell? They were killers, true killers. But Dog News and some of the other magazines at Harris was like killers. It was
different.
Yeah,
so
it was different.
King was different.
Yeah.
Still could come back today.
I feel that.
A void has been closed with that not being around no more. But you also was a new voice for new cultures. Like it was car and drivers, all we knew. And like you started becoming a voice for other cultures through a publication with a new IP.
It's crazy.
Before minorities knew what IP was.
Yeah.
Before because you can come up with an IP, but it still might not have a voice.
That's true.
You can have a voice, still not have a style.
Yeah.
And you was recreating these and like just going to even like rides, like, I was like, yo, he's from Brooklyn. He don't even need a car.
I don't need a car. I didn't start driving until I was like 24.
Yeah,
like that.
And I remember, I just remember you was like, yo, Free, I got something else coming. I got a car magazine. And I was just like, this dude he thinks he's in the Fast and Furious now.
I did, man. That was from my New Mexico life. You needed a car out there. And my boys, my man, big shout out to my man, Zach Luke. He was very instrumental in car culture for me young. Like he always wanted like the biggest woofers and the biggest rims and the crazy engine, and he was always like that. He lived around my way in New Mexico on the base. And when I got back home and I started King, I was like, yo, we have to have a car section. We have to. Like just the flyest car that's out or somebody with the flyest car. And I started the ride section in King. And what was funny, we did a survey of what was people's favorite sections in the magazine for advertisers. And just so happened, rides was always coming up as like the best section. And that's when Dennis, our publisher, was like, yo, I think we got something here we could probably spin off. and do like another one if you got the bandwidth. I was like, I got the bandwidth.
And the band.
And the band. And my man, Adele Henderson, big shout to my brother, Adele. He was like, yo, what you need me to do? And he was our West Coast editor. And he pretty much like, he steered that joint with me. And he made a lot of those covers happen. I'm talking from Shaq to Luda to Mike Jones to everybody that was hot at the time.
Wow.
Adele was on it.
Nah, I gotta say thank you here because I remember what I wanted to be when you did Rods was the king of the corporate mixtapes.
Yep.
So I remember I had the and one buzzing. Shouts out to Nick Storm. He let me do a hypnotic mixtape.
Nick is our guy.
Yeah,
that's
Nick,
our guy.
And I remember I called you. I was like, "Yo, Dave, let me do a mixtape and put it for Rods." And you was like, "What?"
Heard.
And I was like, "Yo, we could put it in the magazine." You like, different. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I remember, man. I went to our publisher Dennis. He was like, "How you gonna do that?" And then we got the sponsors. We got Davin Wills.
We got Davin Wills. Shouts out to Mitchell and S. They was a sponsor.
They jumped in.
And then I just remember you called me and was like, "Yo, it's a go." And I was like, all right, I'm gonna get the sponsors. I'm gonna get all that. But then you was like, "No, besides it's a go, it's gonna be distributed in Barnes and Nobles." And I was like,
getting it in there. We getting it in there.
In the book, in Barnes and Nobles. And I don't remember how many. It was ill because it was like, and I remember I came up to Harrison and you gave me like 5 or 10, but you never felt a magazine with like something inside of it.
It was weighted.
It was weighted.
And then it was straight because it didn't bend.
And then when I opened it and I was like, oh, and then you pull, it was like a pull out.
Pull out, the tear out.
Yeah,
that was the Jada Kiss issue.
Yeah, wow, Kiss was on the cover.
Kiss is leaning up against a Lamborghini Gallardo, I think it is.
Wow.
I remember that. Yeah, that was dope, man. And I was like, "Dad, how we gonna get all this cleared? How we gonna do all this?" Yo, you had everything handled. Man.
Yeah,
was dope.
I forgot what year it was, but like I was back then. I remember it was the same science of how I cleared the music with the N1 mixtapes. The year that the sticker and the square came out for promotional use only, that was what I was using to clear all the music in the N1 mixtapes. So anytime I did a tape for a corporation, that bypassed the legal because it wasn't,
we're not getting no money for it.
Yeah, this is an add-on. This is an add-on, or it was promotion. So that was how we got around to all the red tape. And Harrison never got a call to sue.
We ain't get a call. We ain't get a call. I remember that. We ain't get a call. And they was nervous, but I was like, nah, if we got it, that was dope. And you flew out. To
Portland.
Yeah.
Shouts out to Tyreek Wallace and Rasheed Wallace. Because Rasheed was the first person with a Maybach. And, I remember asking you, like, "Dang, I know I could write. Can I write a story?" And you was like, "Yo, go ahead." And I remember I interviewed him on the Sony flip cam joint with the little screen that popped out on the right. And that was how I took my audio from the interview.
Yeah.
But I was like, yo, I just didn't want. And Rasheed, he was one of the first people with the Maybach, especially in minority and black culture. And we went to Portland. We had a white studio. He pulled the car in, and I'll never forget. I had the Mitchell and S jersey, and I just remember sitting like on the side of the door, like, "Yo, I'm in a Maybach." And I remember I went back home, and everybody was like, "Yo, you got a Maybach?" I was like, it's like, one must be good. I was like, no. Y'all ain't tying me up.
Word.
Nah, but
I definitely want to give a shout out to Rasheed. I ain't gonna blow him up too much, but he did pop up at one of our more celebrated cover shoots. He popped up. I was like, oh, okay.
It's different.
It's okay.
It might have been a King one. I don't think it was another Rods one.
Oh, it was a King one. It was definitely a King one. He popped up. I was like, all right.
Nah.
Big shout to him, though.
So now, Harrison, man, you're in there, like you said, Professor X, creating IPs, building the Avengers of the pen world. And then, you always been able to be, kind of like how Marc Jacobs had his own brand, but he was the head designer for Louis Vuitton.
There you go.
That kind of, to me, was always your world of writing in your pen game. So the next chapter, where you're at now, and like, it's funny, man, because you it seemed like you fall in place of the things you love
Yes.
growing up.
Isn't that something, man?
It's beautiful, man.
It's
and
a
like,
beautiful life, man.
you know, it's only two DCs in entertainment.
Right.
It's DC Comics and Dick Clark.
Yep.
It's one of
That's
them
it.
two. And, I remember when you was like, yo, talking about Dick Clark. And I even with the Country Music Awards and like
Yeah.
being like,
One of the producers. of
being
that.
a producer and seeing you grow in that level. But how does it feel falling into the brands that you love, doing nothing different from what you do, and now
It's crazy.
elevating to, working on New Year's Eve specials and these prestigious brands and like that transition to Dick Clark, but same way it happened with Vibe. It seemed like it's the same way with Dick Clark.
So when I once King and everything was over, I moved on to Global Grind with Russell Simmons. And I was working on all of his digital stuff. And that was an incredible time because I was learning from the master, And through a lot of those connections, I ended up in Silicon Valley. I was working in the tech space early on, with like Ozzy and a bunch of spots like that. And then from there, I got called back to Vibe, which was so crazy. And I became editor-in-chief, and I was editor-in-chief for like almost 10 years. And while I was there, Vibe had gotten sold to a couple of bigger entities like Prometheus, owned by Todd Boehly, who owns the Dodgers with Magic Johnson and all that. And then we got sold to PMC, which is Penske Media Corp. What's crazy, at one point, Prometheus and that crew, they had ties with MRC, who was running Dick Clark. PMC ended up buying Dick Clark. So while I was like consulting with Dick Clark at one point, the owners of Vibe ended up buying Dick Clark. And then they were like, yo, why don't you, since you over there rocking, why don't you just come over here and just do it for real?
Wow.
And I was just like, yo, who has that luck? Who has that? Like, there was never a time where I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be over here full time. This is just gonna be something that I do because I love production. And my whole career was leading up to like these big productions. And once I got over at Dick Clark, I was helping them out in selecting the talent for the shows and coming up with segments for the shows. So for Billboard Music Awards, American Music Awards, Golden Globes, New Year's Rockin' Eve, Academy of Country Music. I was working on all that. And then when I was just getting into my position, Stephen Hill from BET came over, and then I kind of leveled up because now I got a mentor in a way that's been doing it. You know what I'm saying? Forever. So now I'm leveling up in a different way. I think me getting over to Dick Clark was and is the onus of now me being able to take like all these things that I've learned from production and bring it to a head for my own things that I plan on knocking out in the next couple of years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Day, to wrap it all up, man.
Yep.
Yeah, you had a journey, man. God kept you here through a storm.
Man, I was almost out of here,
You was
bro.
almost out of here. It went flat, but it wasn't a line.
It wasn't a line. It was low. It was low, but it wasn't a line.
And like, you wrote a lot, man.
I appreciate that, bro.
You wrote a lot through the years. Your words has been, documented in so many different magazines, books, articles, interviews, everything you've done. Like when it's all said and done and you look at everything you've done and being able to, your legacy is cemented in so many, your legacy and your voice and your style. What is it? What's the next phase of what do you want to, because now, same with me. I've done this with so many corporations, people, we put our voice and our sauce and other brands, people, but now knowing the road of Vibe, Global Grind, and Source, and just all these, and even the DC world. But now the daylight is shining. The sun is rising on yourself finally.
Yeah, finally.
What is that? And not the product, and not the IP, but what is it? The message you want to put out there.
Wow,
when
message.
Because whatever that product is, and whatever the company, and whatever, people gonna get that.
Yeah,
they're gonna be like, oh, okay, this is my favorite thing, or
right.
I tune in the Days channel. But what is the voice, or what is that message you want to say with that?
Wow, man, that's an incredible question, and yeah, I really feel like my career and how I would want to be remembered, very similar to someone that we just lost recently, and our man Sasha Jenkins. I want to show love to his life, and the fact that he was an all-encompassing creative, and he was all about hip-hop culture, no matter what platform or no matter what distribution, he was on it, man. Like, that's what I aspire to continue to do, from documentaries to books to, even podcasts, you know what I'm saying, is just being able to immerse yourself and give your life to this is a different level. And it's shown when someone like him passes on, and it's shown when someone like me lives their life. I want to be able to inspire others and be inspired by people like that. I also want to be able to create opportunities. That's the other thing. I think throughout my career, that's been the thing that I've been known for. Like, I'm still cool with everybody I work with. You know what I'm saying? Like, there might be like 2 or 3 that might not mess with me, but that's on them. I got love for everybody, but for the most part, if you've worked with me or had some kind of connection to a creative entity that I help produce, I've more than likely given you onus in that and helped you along the way. That's really big for me. And I love the fact that people can come up to me now and still be like, yo, I remember when you did X, or you did this for me, or da-da-da. That means a lot, because I didn't just do it. I didn't come out here and just was like me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's always us.
It's us, and I know we can cover more ground when it's more of us and we can rock. Yeah, man, like, it's a charmed life, man. I think about everything, especially since I've gone through what I've gone through the last couple of months. It's put life in a different kind of perspective, bro. Like, I almost wasn't here for my daughter's graduation. Like those type of things, like, even now it gets me emotional, because I wasn't almost here to see her walk across that stage and understand I've been with the journey with her, since she's been born, It's beautiful, man. And you're going to see, that's the beautiful thing about you. Congratulations. You're going to see, like,
the world different.
You look at the world different, man.
And almost you wasn't here for your 50th.
Yo, which is crazy.
I mean, like, knowing you and looking, the things you created, the names and the IPs has been your journey. Because Day, you're a king that took us on a ride, that gave us a vibe. And I was sitting here like, yo, that's a bar.
That's crazy. That's a bar. That's a bar.
And now it's a new day.
I feel that.
And the sun's about to set. And you ready to shine a new daylight on the game, man.
Let's get it, man.
Thank you, man, for
I
this.
Appreciate you,
Thank
bro.
you, bro.
Thank you.